Hey everybody, it's Angie and welcome to Hot and Flashy. Today I wanted to talk about how to read cosmetics and skincare ingredients labels. Now I have been on an epic search this week for a toner that contains tea tree oil, but I don't want one whose main ingredient is also alcohol, which can be very drying, especially on aging skin like mine. So I have been standing around the supermarket and Target and Whole Foods and CVS with my glasses on, reading ingredient labels. And boy, the more I read, the more confusing I find it is. You know, you look at those things and there's those multisyllabic, long words that you can't even begin to pronounce, and so how are you supposed to know what's in this stuff? I like to know what I'm putting on my skin, so for the past, 9 months to a year or so, I've been doing a lot of research into what kind of products go into skincare and cosmetics. What are the good things that you look for? What are some not so good things that you can try to avoid? And so I thought I would just pass along some of the knowledge that I've gained this year through my search for many different products along to you. Let me start with the basics and at the beginning. And of course, as with everything, I have to put a little disclaimer in here, and that is that I am not a chemist, so I don't know what every ingredient could possibly be and what every one of those words means. So you would need an encyclopedia to figure out what every single thing is. This is like a Skincare Ingredients 101 primer, just to give you the basics. If you care, if you don't care, then you don't need to look at ingredients labels at all. But if you have sensitive skin, or if you have oily skin, or if there's some ingredients that you're not quite sure about, you may want to know how to look for them in ingredient labels. So that's all I'm doing here. I am not going to go into the pros and cons of any specific ingredients, except for ones that I personally would like to stay away from. If we can avoid it, I'd prefer to not get into the debate over parabens and sulfates, and it's way too big of a debate for us to get into today. All right, so let's start with the basics. Your basic ingredient label, which I have an example of here, printed out a nice big one so that we could all see it. Your basic ingredient label is required by law here in the US and most of the European Union. I didn't check every country on the planet, so I just checked the EU and the USA. The laws are pretty similar in both these places. And that is that the ingredients have to be listed on the outer packaging. They don't necessarily have to be listed on the inner packaging. So if you buy a sunscreen like this, the ingredients will generally be on the back, but once you take the product out of the packaging, they might not be on there. So if you want to be able to remember what the ingredients are, you should keep the box. According to the FDA and the regulatory body for the EU, the ingredients have to be listed in descending order, with the ingredient with the highest concentration being listed first. All right, so a standard ingredient label will just have a little box like this that says ingredients, and it will list from highest concentration to lowest concentration all the ingredients in the product. And there are some exceptions to that. That is for every ingredient in the product that's in there in over a 1% concentration. So everything that is in there and it's below 1%, it doesn't have to be in order. But the problem is that when you look at a label like this, it just lists them all. There isn't a defining line between where things fall below the 1% and where they're above the 1%. So you don't know, what's the most, and you know which things are the least, but you don't know where it ends, where the defining line is between them. And I find that kind of annoying. But they are not required to tell you how much of each ingredient is in there, because of trade secrets. They don't want other companies copying their exact formula. The exception to that rule is if there are active ingredients which are considered drugs, active drugs. So in the case of this one, which is a sunscreen, the label will be a little different. It will have active ingredients listed at the top, and then below it'll have the inactive ingredients. So the active ingredients have to be listed, and it has to give the percentage. So as a general rule of thumb, it's pretty safe to assume that the top, say, 4 to 7 ingredients are above 1%, and everything below that, you're getting such a minute amount that, it's good that it's in there, but it's not in a high enough concentration to really help or harm you. So if you're looking for a specific ingredient, like for an anti-aging serum, if you want it to contain vitamin C, let's say, the vitamin C should be one of the top ingredients. It should be within the top 7. If it's below that, you're probably not getting enough for it to have any effect on your skin whatsoever. And the same thing with harmful ingredients. If they're listed way towards the bottom, then they're probably not in there in enough of a concentration to really hurt you. All right, so that's the generalizations of labeling. Now let's move on to specific categories of ingredients. If you are in your late 40s or early 50s like I am, and you're going to be reading ingredient labels, you must have your specs on because the type is so tiny. They actually are regulated as to the size of type that they can use, but like 1/32 of an inch for the size of the lowercase o is what's allowed, which is pretty darn tiny, and I can't see that without my glasses. So glasses are on. This means that you might learn something today. All right, well, let's go. So the first category of ingredients that I wanted to talk about are sunscreens. There are basically 2 types of sunscreens. There are physical or mineral-based sunscreens, and there are chemical-based sunscreens. Basically, they both work really well. The reason that you would be looking for one or the other is if you have an allergy to one or the other, or you have sensitive skin and you can't use one or the other. So then you might look for, a mineral-based or instead of a chemical-based sunscreen. So if you're looking for a physical or mineral-based sunscreen, the types of words that you should be looking for generally end in the letters IDE, so IDE. So you would be looking for things like titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. And as I said, that would be in the active ingredients labels. And then all the other things that weren't sunscreen, that were just fillers and slip agents and things that make it feel good and spread nicely, would be in the inactive ingredients. Chemical sunscreens have names that end in -one or -ate, and so they tend to be words like avobenzone, oxybenzone, homosalate, or octisalate. All right, now moving on from sunscreens. The second category of ingredient that I wanted to talk about today is the silicones. And silicones come under the category of emollients or slip agents, and they're the things in your skincare and your makeup that gives the makeup that silky smooth feel, and that helps the pigments and the ingredients to spread more evenly over your skin, and they leave a really nice finish. Silicones are pretty easy to identify on a label. They generally either end in cone or they have meth somewhere in the word. So they are, the most common ones are cyclopentasiloxane or cyclohexasiloxane. There's also dimethicone and all kinds of variations on dimethicone as a word. And there's also phenyltrimethicone. So anything silicone, dimethicone, or trimethicone, or cyclopenta or cyclohexa, those tend to be silicones. Well, the next category that I wanted to talk about are the alcohols. Alcohols have a really wide range of uses in skincare and cosmetics. And there are good alcohols and there are bad alcohols. And I said I didn't want to get into good and bad things, but this is just based on my personal experience. Now, alcohol helps to keep products light, and it also evaporates very quickly. So it also sort of robs your skin of moisture as it evaporates. It helps products to keep a really lighter feel. A lot of the products that you find that are more watery will have a lot of the alcohols in them. All right, and so I have written down the names of the alcohols that I do not like to see in products because they're the quick dry alcohols, the ones that evaporate very quickly. And then there are more viscous, thicker, fatty-based alcohols, and those are fine to have in your products. But when you're looking at a label, they both say something alcohol, so you need to know which is which. All right, so the alcohols that I do not like to see on labels are ethanol and denatured alcohol, ethyl alcohol, methanol, and benzyl alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and SD alcohol, which is just another name for denatured alcohol. Now the nice alcohols, that it's okay if it's in there. The words that you would be looking for are cetyl alcohol, cetyl alcohol, lauryl alcohol, or Laureth 23, stearyl alcohol, or behenyl alcohol, right? And so just so you know how to spell those, I'll just have them floating by on the screen so you can see the differences in case you want to write them down or anything. All right, so on to the next category, which is moisturizers. Moisturizing ingredients are ingredients that draw water to the skin and hold it there, or they form a protective barrier that doesn't let the moisture escape. Some of the best ingredients for moisturization are hyaluronic acid, which can also be listed on the label as sodium hyaluronate, and also glycerin, shea butter, alpha hydroxy acid, and a whole mess of oils. If you see jojoba, almond, coconut, sesame, or olive oil on a moisturizer product label or any of the other things that I mentioned before that, those are all good moisturizers. All right, now to anti-aging, which is my mothership these days. I am going crazy looking for bigger, better, cheaper anti-aging products. So, I spend a lot of time comparing products so that I can save some money. Some of the best anti-aging ingredients are the vitamins. Vitamins A, C, and E are some of the most potent anti-aging ingredients that have the most clinical research behind them. So those are the things that I look for in my anti-aging products. But they're not always labeled vitamin A, vitamin C, or vitamin E. So everything has like a Latin or a technical name that you have to kind of learn if you want to look for things. So for vitamin A, as you know, that is retinol, which can also be called retinoic acid, or if you're going for the prescription retin-A, then the ingredient you're looking for is tretinoin. So the other vitamins that you can look for are vitamin C. Vitamin C's labeling name can be L-ascorbic acid. It can also be MAP, M-A-P, which is magnesium ascorbyl phosphate. It can also be ascorbyl palmitate, or ester C. And some derivatives of vitamin C that they're starting to look into and that can appear in some of your ingredients are things like tetrahexyldecyl ascorbate. Oh my gosh, it is a mouthful, isn't it? All right, so vitamin E, if you're looking for a product with vitamin E in it, that is listed as tocopherol. And I used to call it tocopherol until someone corrected me. But it's tocopherol, or it can be D-alpha tocopherol or D-alpha tocopherol acetate. So those are things to look for if you're looking for vitamin E in a product. All right, so other antioxidants that you can look for, and these pretty much are just listed the way they are. Acai oil or acai berry can be in there, alpha lipoic acid, green tea extract, coenzyme Q10, caffeine, and then there are a couple of acids that are really great for skincare. You may hear a lot of people talk about AHA, which is alpha hydroxy acid, and its other name is glycolic. If someone says go get yourself a glycolic, it's a great exfoliant, but if you can't find it, it might be because it's also called alpha hydroxy acid, and that's what you should be looking for on the label. It can be labeled either way. And the same thing with salicylic acid, which is also a good exfoliant, is a great acne treatment, but sometimes it's called salicylic acid and sometimes it's called BHA. So that can be listed in both forms as well. All right, so that was everything that I wanted to say about labeling in general. Then I had a couple specific examples for you. I use and love this Neutrogena Ultra Sheer Liquid Sunscreen. And I showed you its ingredients. It has, on this page earlier, avobenzone 3%, homosalate 10%, octisalate 5%, octocrylene 7.5%, and oxybenzone 5%. And in other ingredients, there is not SD alcohol listed on here, and certainly not in the top bunch of ingredients. And this retails for about $10.50. But I read recently in a magazine about another sunblock that was supposed to be better than my Neutrogena that I know and love, and it was this La Roche-Posay Anthelios 60 sunscreen. And when I went to CVS to get it, the nice CVS lady spent a lot of time telling me about why it was so much better than the Neutrogena because it blocks shallow depth rays as well as, deep depth UVA and all this stuff. So I was like, oh great, I bought it. It was 30 bucks, right? It retails between $24 and $29. So I get it home and I'm working on this article for you guys. And I decide to just, take a quick glance at the ingredients labels. And so it has the same 5 sunscreens as the Neutrogena in just about the same concentrations. So avobenzone 3%, homosalate 10.72%, octisalate 3.21%, octocrylene 6%, and oxybenzone 3.86%. But then, inactive ingredients. Water is the first one, cyclopentasiloxane is the second ingredient, alcohol denatured, third ingredient. I use my sunscreen every single day. I don't want to be putting on something where the third ingredient is denatured alcohol every day, so this is going back to CVS. So that's why I say you kind of need to look at these things. Now, by far my favorite ingredients to look at is for my anti-aging skincare. And you know that I am always on here telling you about my Timeless 20% CE Ferulic Serum. Now, this is an old bottle that I have. It is brown and oxidized. I don't use this one anymore. I talked a lot in one of my videos about how this compares to the gold standard of CE Ferulic serums, which is the SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic. And if you buy and love SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic, then by all means, keep buying it and keep loving it. I'm not trying to get anybody to not buy their product. Whatever. It's your money. You can spend it how you want. But for me, I like to spend my money on things that work for anti-aging, like Botox, and I hate to waste my money on products where I can find something cheaper that's pretty much the exact same thing. So when I was looking into this retails for $25 for 1 ounce. I don't have the CE, the SkinCeuticals, to show you. I did buy it twice in my lifetime. It oxidized just like this one does, and I ended up throwing half of it away. When I throw half of this one away, it cost me, $12.50 to throw away half of this one. When I throw away half of my SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic that cost me $153 for an ounce, I'm throwing away $75, okay? That's too much money for me to flush down the toilet. So I decided that I needed to find out if they were really comparable. Now I use this and I love it, and I've used that, and it worked the same, all right? I'm not saying it worked better or worse. I think they're the same. So one day someone had asked me, really, how do they compare? And so I went online and I wrote down the ingredients for each one. All right. So on this side is the ingredients for the SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic, and on this side are the ingredients for this Timeless Skincare CE Ferulic Serum. So what I saw was that the top 4 ingredients were identical. Okay. But they each have, say, 12 ingredients, and of the 12 ingredients, 8 ingredients are identical. They're just in different orders. So where the top 4 were identical, I was like, oh, that's great. Now, the other thing I noticed is that the vitamin E on the Timeless is listed higher on here than the vitamin E, which is the alpha tocopherol over here. For the SkinCeuticals, it's listed lower. And they both have hyaluronic acid, which is one of my favorite moisturizing ingredients. And in the Timeless, it is 4th from the bottom. And as you can see, on this one, it is dead last. So they are pretty much the same. They have things in them to balance their pH, because it's not that it only works at a certain pH, but it's too irritating for your skin at certain pHs. So anything below a 3.5 is you're good to go. And really you want it to be between sort of a low 3 and a 3.5. So it's a pretty narrow range that it's really nice for your skin and not irritating. So fortunately for me, my dad is a chemist, and so I took my bottle of Timeless Skincare home, because that was the only outstanding question I had about it, was whether or not it was in the proper pH range. And so he put it in his pH meter down in his lab, and sure enough, it was hovering just above the 3.0 range. It was like, you know, so not 3.5, but like 3.1, 3.08, something like that. So I like saving the $125 every 3 months and not flushing $75 down the toilet. So that's why reading ingredient labels has become so important, because I don't want to be a fool in his money. My dad being a chemist, it's funny, when I showed him my my Timeless, and I said, now Dad, I want you to analyze this product and this other product and tell me, you know, is this one really worth $153 and is this one really worth $25? His immediate response is, neither of them is even worth $25. He goes, the raw ingredients in both of these is worth about, you know, $5.50. And then, you know, obviously there's packaging, there's advertising in SkinCeuticals case, there's, you know, patent getting and all that stuff. So whatever, the price is what the price is, and you can make your own value judgments, but I just wanted you to have some more information so that if you wanted to start looking more carefully at your skincare, you could, and if you wanted to start analyzing your, especially your anti-aging products, you could do that too. Now there are some great resources online. I, you know, don't make this stuff up, and like I said, I'm not a chemist, so, you know, there's also 15 other ingredients on every label that I don't understand and I don't know what it is, but these are the main things that I am looking for, and the main things that help me to rule things out. I'll put the resources that I use online and that are my favorites online in the info box below. So if you want to link to those and take a look at anything, the Paula's Choice website has a really great ingredients dictionary that you can look up pretty much any ingredient that's out there, and they'll give you their assessment of whether it's good, average, best, or downright bad. So that's great, and there are a couple other sites that I use. I think that's all I had to say for today. This is probably a pretty long video. So as always, thanks for watching and take care. Bye-bye.